Hello and welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about digestive issues during perimenopause and obviously continuing into post-menopause as well, unfortunately. I prefer to call them tummy troubles. As you might notice, I've got a whiteboard behind me, which I hope you can see. The lighting is not very good today, and I did put on an overhead light and it just reflected off the whiteboard and it meant you couldn't see anything at all. So I'm hoping you can see it. I will check after I've finished the video. So the main reason for women getting problems with their tummy during the menopause years is the changes in the hormone levels. So not just the change in estrogen, but the other hormones as well, such as progesterone. The balance changes between them, between all the hormones in your body, and that can actually disrupt your digestive system in several different ways. Estrogen particularly is very helpful for your digestive system. It helps to keep your cortisol levels in check. Now, cortisol is the stress hormone, and if you have a higher level of cortisol, it really messes with your digestion, so you can end up getting problems of various kinds. So for example, excuse me turning around, I hope you can see this. So symptoms of tummy troubles, these are just a few of the symptoms, they're not necessarily all of the symptoms. So flatulence, gas or wind, whatever you want to call it, but nonetheless it's unpleasant. Indigestion, heartburn, then general tummy aches and pains, being constipated, or also sometimes maybe having bouts of diarrhea. IBS obviously can make you veer between the two, and I know a lot of women suffer with IBS. I suffer with it myself, and I tried to control it through diet, but you excuse me, you can veer from one to the other. But even if you haven't suffered with anything like that before, you may find that when you're going through the menopause process that you begin to suffer with it then. So there's also bloating, which, as all women will tell you, is really uncomfortable. It makes you feel really fat, your clothes don't fit, and it can actually be quite painful. It's not a jokey thing, it's not nice at all. And weight gain, if your digestion system is not working properly, then you are more likely to put on weight. So this is one of the reasons for weight gain during the menopause years. And then there are some common foods that can actually trigger gas and wind. Now I've got written down, I haven't written them all, believe me, there's a long list. So cauliflower and Brussels sprouts and even broccoli, anything from, I think it's called the brassica family, is known to more likely to give you wind. Although they're very healthy foods to eat, and you do want to include them in your diet, particularly broccoli. I mean, broccoli really has a lot of good nutrients. Unfortunately, they can give you bouts of gas. So onions do that for a lot of people, and beans of various kinds. Again, beans, another healthy thing to eat, full of fibre and goodness, but they can actually trigger, you know, lots of gas. And then soft cheeses, fizzy drinks and refined sugar. Refined sugar we tend to find in treats and stuff. If you're a fan of chocolate, if you like dark chocolate, that actually has less sugar in it, and dark chocolate also has other health benefits. It's considered to be quite good for you, in moderation obviously, but these are all things that can actually trigger gas and wind, and like I say, there is a lot more. And then things that are common for triggering either indigestion or heartburn, both of which can be really uncomfortable. Heartburn can actually be really quite painful, but these are a few common things. So tea and coffee. Coffee may be a little bit more than tea, but everyone's digestion is a little bit different. So one thing might affect you and another thing might not. Fizzy drinks, again, that's another thing for the indigestion and heartburn. So anything fizzy, even if it's only flavoured fizzy water, the fact that it's fizzy can trigger indigestion and or heartburn. Spicy food, obviously that's, well, obviously it's quite strong, I love spicy food, but that can actually trigger indigestion and heartburn. And then also if you eat just before you go to bed, and your digestive system hasn't had enough time to start digesting the food and getting itself into a rhythm, it's not good to go to bed on a really full stomach. So don't eat too close to bedtime is a little tip on that one. Give yourself a few hours before you're going to go to sleep. There are things you can do to help yourself. Obviously, I think the first thing is to keep a food diary. If you keep yourself a food diary and keep it over several weeks, you can see patterns forming quite often of, I get a lot of gas when I've eaten this, or I tend to get indigestion if I eat this, or look at the time I actually have my evening meal. That was a bit late and then I was up all night with indigestion or heartburn. So a food diary, that can help you identify triggers for you. And like I say, they're all quite personal. Things that affect you might not affect somebody else and vice versa. So keep a food diary. It's a very personal thing, but that can really help, because then you've got the choice. Then you can decide what to cut out, what to include in your diet, or even if you're going to risk it a little, because sometimes you really like a little bit spicy food or a curry and you think, well, I'll have a milder one, I'll eat it earlier, and so on. It gives you a little bit of control back really over your digestive system. If you eat smaller meals, like regular smaller meals, so you're having your normal daily intake of food but you're spreading it out throughout the day, that can help. So you're not overloading your stomach, you're giving your stomach a chance to break down the food and digest the food in little bits and pieces. That can actually help as well. Keeping yourself hydrated is always a biggie. You don't have to overdo it, you don't have to drink gallons of water. You do get a lot of fluid from your foods as well. But keeping yourself hydrated, your digestive system won't work very well anyway if you've not got enough fluid in there to help it to do its job. Exercise is a good one for moving gas around and helping it to escape appropriately. And so if you don't get enough exercise, you can end up with a lot of trapped gas and wind, and that can be extremely painful. So even if it's just regular but gentle exercise, it keeps everything moving around in the way it should do. If you tend to suffer with constipation, the thing is, when you go to the toilet, is don't rush going to the toilet. Try to be as relaxed as possible. Try and take your time. The more you try and force things, the more pain and discomfort you're likely to end up with. Obviously, with constipation, you can get over-the-counter remedies for that. But if it really is an ongoing thing for you, then it might be worth having a word with your doctor to see what they suggest, because you don't want to be constantly putting tablets down your neck to help you to go to the toilet. So it might be worth having a word with the doctor about that one, instead of constantly taking the over-the-counter remedies, because you can make yourself actually quite ill if you keep doing that. So looking after your digestive system in general, keep your food diary, note what affects you, either eliminate it or make it smaller quantities, and use your own judgment. It's kind of like listening to your stomach. It's kind of like listening to your stomach and seeing what it's doing, seeing what things affect you personally, and what the issue is with you. I always recommend a food diary. It really is a good way, particularly if you do suffer with IBS, it is a good way of identifying foods to help keep things under control. I did this several years ago, and what I learn is what I use now. So I very, very rarely suffer with tummy problems unless I've been a little bit naughty. And if I have been a little bit naughty with what I eat, then I do have to suffer the consequences. So I hope the tips have been helpful. There are quite basic tips. There are more tips in an article I've written, which there is a link to on the description of this video, about digestive problems in menopause. You might like to read it. There's some more tips and more information that you might find helpful. If you'd like to know when there are any other videos coming up on the channel, there is a notification bell below the video. There's also a subscribe button if you'd like to subscribe to the channel too. Thank you for listening. Hope you found it helpful, and I will see you soon.